Good morning, everyone. My name's Steve Boff. I'm the Enterprise Tableau Product Owner for Lockheed Martin. And very exciting conference so far. How'd everybody like devs on stage? Yeah? How many people are scared of how to deploy that at scale? So, I'm very interested in this transcriber as well, too, because I have a slight Philadelphia accent, so bear with me throughout this presentation. I'd like to introduce my partner in crime, Anthony Brown. You may have seen him on Tuesday with the public sector briefing. True user consultant experience and the UX consultancy and the product design that you've been bringing this year has really brought us to this moment in time. It's really a celebration for us today, so please welcome Anthony Brown to the stage. As we take you together through the Lockheed Martin Tableaumatic universe.
Thanks, Steve. So I guess a Detroit accent would work a little bit better, though, right, for transcription? Okay, yeah, we're good to go. So looking at the agenda today and some of the things we're going to talk about and what you're going to learn here, first we're going to propose the challenge, right, that we have with how large our company is and what we have to do as far as deploying at scale, supporting the large user base that we have within Tableau at Lockheed Martin. And then just set up a little bit of the phases that we went through, our story, and how we've overcome different challenges and the things that we've learned. And we didn't always do everything the right way, right? So learn from us, if you're at different stages. And actually makes me think of a question. So who's like first year with Tableau right now? So got a few people. What about like 2 to 3 years? Okay, good. So you might have, we were 3 years into it. So you might have a couple things that you'll see that you went through and that we've also went through as well. All right, so just giving you an idea of the scale. So Lockheed Martin has over 105,000 employees. We have employees within 54 different countries across the world. So it's a large international company that comes with a lot of different regulations on data, right, and where that data is stored in different areas of the world, and then also just the infrastructure that we got to set up to support that international user base and also our user base within the US. 1 in 5 employees are veterans. So if you're a veteran in the audience, thank you for your service. Happy Veterans Day this week. And our makeup of our company is also very high amount of knowledge workers, right? So data is very important to them in looking at their processes, and looking at how they're designing things. That's a big part of what they're doing every day. So the adoption in those different areas, what we think about is like industrial engineering, manufacturing engineering, quality engineering has been one of the biggest areas that we see adoption of Tableau at our company. So why are we even doing this? And what is Tableau connected to us as far as our data refinery? So to explain this a little bit, we're going through a digital transformation right now. We're looking at some of those paper processes and the things that we're doing across the company, and how can we digitize that? How can we take a process that was done manually before and apply any type of digital technology to it to start to speed up the process and automate things? And a big part of that analytics that we want to do is with Tableau. So we want to enable people, just like Tableau says, to see and understand their data. And part of that, what we're doing here is a basic data literacy. So you'll see at the bottom of the ramp here, this is an experience map. This is a population of around 75,000 or 50,000 users that we're looking at, where we want to get them trained up on basic data literacy. What is data? What kind of data am I using within the company? How's my data being used within the company, but also in my private life? And what does that mean to me? And why is it important that I even create good, accurate data? Right? So we have systems that are set up as far as maybe your ERP systems or things that are collecting data. And if the people don't quite understand how that's used, they might not care about the accuracy, right, and what they're actually inputting those values. So understanding that and how it's used is very important to get good, quality, accurate data. Then if we move up the experience ramp, we have our self-service data prep and our citizen data science group that we're looking at. So this still includes those that we want to deploy Tableau to. You think about Tableau Prep, for instance, or any of the products, as far as the advanced levels that we have within Tableau, we want to teach people that. And so we're going to get into later in the presentation what we're doing to train that community and really level people up through that process of first starting from basic data literacy all the way into becoming self-service data prep. All right, so we're going to get into the feature presentation, and this is a disclaimer because when we explain things a lot of times, We always like to use movie quotes. We always like to think about, like the Marvel universe, for instance. We're big comics and Marvel fans. Got any Marvel fans in the audience here today?
Just a few.
All right, good. So sometimes when we're explaining things to people, we always make references. So the poetic license here is kind of us saying, like, we're going to reference a few things like within the Marvel universe and use that to kind of share some of the concepts that we're talking about and why it makes sense. And every once in a while, we reserve the right to kind of break the fourth wall and look directly into the audience and talk directly to you. All right, so we're going to get started with phase one, our story, and how we started with Tableau. So the origin story here, we really almost lost Tableau as far as not deploying it at the company. There's a part of our business that was divested, so that's, they're being separated from the main Lockheed business. And they had been the support team for Tableau and had been the ones that were setting up Tableau for the company. Now, Lockheed still owned the technology as far as our servers and having the Tableau licenses, but the support team for it was kind of going away, right? So now we've got to staff that. We've got to figure out how to keep this product within Lockheed Martin. And so that's part of what we're talking about here is, we got a partner that's going away. We've got to figure out how to really continue this, get that visual analytics, because we felt it was so important for people to have visual analytics, where, before that it was tables, right? And some of you might still have tables and a lot of table-based reports at your companies. That was pretty much everything, right? And we just felt so strongly about visualization and how you can understand your data at the aggregate and looking at trends that this was so important. We wanted to make sure it was successful at the company. So it's really time to get to work, right? How do we keep this? How do we get the word out there so that everybody knows about Tableau? So getting the word out, the first things that we started with were your normal distribution channels, right? So we've got our email distribution list, segregations within the company of those that we might see as possible Tableau users, the different engineering groups that I had talked about, the makeup of the company, reaching out to them, message boards. So one of them that you see on here is our Tableau Community of Practice message board. We're going to reference this a few times. This is a platform called Eureka. It's just like Twitter, so you can have short 140-character messages on there, and people can collaborate with each other and share things like links and any type of messages on there. So that was one thing that we had set up to really talk to the community and get the word out and start to build a user base. And then word of mouth, right? You probably experienced this where I know this was something that happened to me when I first started using Tableau. I'm using it, and I share it at a meeting or something like that, and somebody asked me, what is that? That's really cool. Like, how did you do that? And so that was really some of the initial growth that happened, was just that word of mouth of people seeing Tableau in action and different functions and different meetings, and then being able to use that across their group and reaching out to the central group on how do I get a license, how do I get access and get started with everything. And we're moving into Slack. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but we do have Slack at the company too. That's also just a reference to show you, the different types of applications that we're using for our communications. All right, so this is how it started off and how it worked. And part of what we're going to show this slide a few different times here. We've blocked some of this off with transparency just so we can focus on the different areas of the timeline. So we're in October 2016. We launched that COP, we launched that Eureka Stream board, started doing some of those messages, and this is how it kicked off as far as users, right? We were just under the 100 mark right there, and then we have Tableau 2016 conference that comes about. And this is, you can see, just how many users we had started there, and then it becomes, a larger uptick. But this was traditional, right? The word of mouth, just some email lists that we were using, and no other advanced techniques. And so we'll talk through this as we go through the rest of the presentation on some of the other things we did and show how that growth started to really expand and maximize. All right, so I'm going to hand it off to Steve here.
Thank you. And I guess the key area there is that the community of practice is representative of our entire community. So we use it as, I like to call it a barometer, to see that growth is really indicative of the overall mass adoption. You may ask, okay, the 1,000 numbers, is that really all you've adopted? That's just our representative community that's quite active. I'm very proud of the community of practice members. If you're here, stand and be recognized or wave. Yep, we have a few of our members.
Hey guys.
Hey guys, appreciate it. But what does traditional IT typically do when you have something like this? We're putting together an enterprise service. So you architect the service with all the bells and whistles. So when you look at it, something comes up, multiple business areas, multiple trade studies were pointed towards. We did one at the enterprise, we did one at Aero, followed on right afterward. So the birth of Tableau Enterprise Service. So Tableau as a service, or Tableau ES as we like to call it. Again, driven by an exceptional community, a core team, some of our core team members are here, and architecture. So we did everything traditional, by the book, as Tableau would recommend at the time, so training, professional services to build our high availability architecture, community of practice, utilizing the Eureka technology to be able to get information out. One of the greatest things we saw early on, I'd say two really, the things that were different about this versus any traditional IT deployment is this was the first time we were able to deliver an analytics and business intelligence tool, a single server base for the entire enterprise. So we're really proud of that. You may have 7 of a different earlier generation tool set. We were able to get all 4 business areas. As our director likes to joke, we have 4 small businesses under a common health plan at Lockheed Martin. So the requirements, the mission requirements are vastly different between our different business areas. So to be able to just attain that single server environment, that's kind of why I have this hairline, let's put it that way, because it's definitely challenging to maintain that. But also our community of practice were helping us out. 6 minutes to answer a question, so it didn't even become a Service Central ticket, or 8 minutes. That is absolutely huge. So many tickets that did not have to get launched to Tableau or launched to our internal Service Central queue because the community was already helping each other out. That's when we knew we really had something special and noteworthy. Okay. Why don't I just use that? Mm-hmm. And of course, content side and user community side has to be balanced with a great architecture. So we used all the traditional recommendations, all the by the book from the information that was given to us with professional services, the recommendations and white papers on high availability, and due to our system requirements and a lot of our data requirements, we're on-prem, but we wanted to do all the things, process redundancy, everything that you would expect for an enterprise service at high availability. And eventually, everybody has a cloud-first strategy at this point in time, so we have, what's interesting is when I've come to conference previously and I see something really good on the cloud and then I ask, well, what about GovCloud? You hear crickets. So we might be working this as one of the first that are getting out there with the type of requirements we have. But again, it's all that is really a roadmap that got us from the concept to a reality to our future. So let's see. And really up at the top, you'll find I have a penchant for Venn diagrams. We really like this integrated approach where we keep our employees, our suppliers, and our customers in mind in an integrated approach. So we've been given requirements that a general at the U.S. Air Force may need to see the exact same visualization that we have with on-prem data. So we are definitely working in that area too. That's really our end vision, is to be able to get visualizations to work for that entire ecosystem. I've met with a number of our friends from Northrop Grumman. They are both a supplier and a customer to us. So when you start thinking about how intricate that ecosystem can get and really what you need to do there, it definitely becomes quite challenging. Okay. But we did everything by the book initially and we grew. So we had a lot of great successes during this. I'll say the Tableaumatic year is from March to March, the way we measure it. Typically that's after our strategic planning for the year in the first quarter. So you can see many of these items, a lot of good common sense, a lot of things that we've deployed with other businesses, traditionally. And if you keep hearing it by the book and traditionally, spoiler alert. Because what's coming next is the challenge. So another item here, we went on the offensive with Tableau enablement sessions, specifically looking at Tableau users who have, users who have never used Tableau. So there were different feelings about that. How do you keep your customer base flourishing and motivated if you're focusing on people not using it. But again, we wanted to try to balance that growth, to really continue the momentum, but also to reach new communities that had not seen the product before. So here we go. So we were good until we weren't good, or at least from a perspective of the mass adoption. You may have seen it being flashed up during the preview section of this before the main pitch started. We're in a year where it's going to be critical to really drive, I'll say, geometric progression. We call it the IC, or individual contributor use case. That's going to be the big use case. Our former PMO, Bert Colwell, used to call it the 401k use case, where all casual users in Lockheed Martin, all 110,000, could casually hit that and see their 401k information. So just the concept there. You know, many of you probably have consolidated HR systems that are web-based. That's the thought process there. And we're really coming up on that individual contributor use case this year. So there's a few things. Also, remember in Iron Man when he goes like this and he gets cracked and falls all over the place? That's what I feel like as a product owner in server administration. So when we started looking at some of our infrastructure challenges, we really said, that looks like the Hawaiian Islands. So a little bit left of Malibu, but we actually call our high availability servers now the Big Island. And because the other areas, we're starting to get into different use cases that are what I call closed area networks. So it might be high side. There could be international requirements such as ITAR, a lot of different things. We even had a vision that we could support CodeQuest. Just go somewhere, stand up an environment for them for a week or a few days, and then drop it. So we're even trying to get proactive and creative with that, but knowing that a lot of times we don't put all the bells and whistles to high availability in those servers, but they're equally important. So one of our programs, I'll credit it, Euclid, their vision is awesome because they want the user to experience the same exact thing, whether they're on the high side or whether they're utilizing our big servers in the unclassified forest, or UCF as we call it. So you start seeing how challenging that could be, trying to keep them compatible. So I would never recommend one thing that I did, which was actually help install via IM and phone calls. They were like, I can't really show you what's going on, but let me explain the server install process or where we're stuck. So very unique experience, just not something that we want to make a habit of. So when you look at that from that perspective, we got this user activity swirling towards us, and we have our main servers, and we also have our adjunct servers or peripheral servers that we have to maintain as well. So again, maybe not centrally installed, but centrally managed. Now, I'll tell you, this is one of the biggest reasons, outside of us just continuing to blow our desktop projections every year, which I think is a common thread. With great growth comes, many of the great sales team that supports us are in the room, and how many point buys did we have to do over and over again with those type of processes? So by the great growth, we also had a challenge constantly blowing our desktop projections. So 400 went to 1370, went to 2900, now at 9200. So that's part of our enterprise license agreement. This was the main reason. There are certain areas you'll never be able to beat infrastructure, so you modify the agreement to adjust toward it. So again, that creator license and being able to stand up a server with just a single creator has been very beneficial here, and it's been one of the main reasons. I would definitely recommend, if you have this situation from an infrastructure perspective and you're core and perpetual based, this is really the only way we could figure to do it. Not a true sales, was that a good enough sales pitch on subscription enterprise licensing? And if we didn't have enough architecture challenges, just the typical challenges with content, Cav would say, free the data and no limits. And I'll say, give me is it still on? The Tableau Accords. I joke, I call it, where the guidelines are gray, but even some of the policies seem more gray when we look at it, because there's a use case that could go right around it. So imagine, I'm sure you guys could look at both sides of this equation and list a number of items. How do you manage corporate information security in a self-service construct when industry is still very gray or very non-committal about it? You know, we utilize Gartner, we utilize Forrester a lot as well too. I prefer to look at the analytics and business intelligence as just a continuous trade study. That way we don't start and stop. We just continue to manage the innovations because of how dynamic and how fast it's changing. So, actually did. And there you go. So, while we were fighting with ourselves with content, while we were trying to figure out our complex architecture, things will end up balancing themselves. So, just with the sheer demand and the things that you always love, the 15-minute refreshes on that somebody schedules on a daily, you know, it only updates once a day. So they're the type of things. It's fun working with customers. You can never take things away from them, you know. So by being very flexible, we had some challenges with performance. Obviously, that's a major challenge with the server performance. So typically, the way we solve this is we're putting more effort and more pressure on getting this service to run at scale. So we're growing, but we immediately started seeing we're leveling off. And that's very concerning up front. So we were doing a lot of enablement. We now have an agile team, actually 2 agile teams, training and certification and communication and awareness, working with us continuously. And still, we were starting to saturate. So there could be a number of reasons, you know, are we truly at scale, or are we getting to scale? But also, we started recognizing that both infrastructure and content-wise, we started really having some growing pains. So that's where I think the next section here, before I turn it back over to Anthony to kind of talk through our strategic items and some of the vision, which I'm really excited about to be able to present to you guys. That's the true meat, is wave 4 or phase 4 for us. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we are changing our mindset with upgrades. So this chart makes me misty-eyed in some ways because I spent so many long nights, and the team did, with the Tableau server, you know, somewhat, I wouldn't call it exactly romantic, but, you know, server upgrades, a lot of fun. And the big area that I would say is we were always doing really well delivering the latest features, and pretty amazing at enterprise scale, way back from the 933 all the way through to what we're currently at, 2019.3.1. But I would say that if you look at 2019, so we've done 4 upgrades in 2019. This just shows our production high availability and our non-production. We also have a dev and a beta box, so we do that progression. Single server beta, single server dev, up to the high availability environments. And I was told I wasn't supposed to geek out or talk too much about hardware and things like that in a mass adoption pitch. But the one thing I will say, thanks to the team, who works the pre-release program? And thank you. The beta has actually allowed us, so the work that the public beta since 2018, I believe it was announced, last year at conference, you can see an immediate change. So some of this is getting past the TSM, the Tab Admin to Tableau Services Manager challenge, but then also we're now delivering in less than half the time, and we're also upgrading faster. Because we can look at this, and an extended visualization of this right side is out on my Tableau Public. Please go use it, improve it, talk to me about it. I actually screen scraped Tableau's release history ever since the beginning. So everybody talks Tableau on Tableau. How about Tableau on Tableau's website data? So there's also other ones out there like TSM commands, because you'd like to understand what your most configurable options are. It doesn't seem, but I'm a big stickler on you master the product by using the product to run the service. That is one of the timeless reminders I'll always provide. So we might already hit some lessons learned. I'm getting excited now. But you can see here, versus version 10 and version 9, many less patches for the versions of 2018, 2019. And as I mentioned, on my public, I extend that view out quite a bit. So that tells me Our core team, and I'll look directly at the guy who's helping us here, amazing, because it takes a village when you try to set a pace like this. When you really try to drive this much, when we have tens of thousands of users across 4 business areas, to be able to do this 3 to 4 times a year, it's just truly amazing. And again, thanks to the teams that work the public beta and also the customers who provide active feedback. So I'm going to turn it over back to Anthony here for phase 4 as we integrate passion and purpose.
All right, thank you, Steve. So passion and purpose. When somebody loves Tableau, right, they can be passionate in good ways and in bad ways. Can be angry with you too, right? So we look at the mass crowd that's out there. Where's Tableau Prep? Where's my web data connectors? I need support. Where are all these tickets as far as, you know, the status of my ticket? Do you have training set up, right? So we did have a lot of these things, but as far as having them in one consolidated area where we could use a process to, you know, facilitate any of that, you know, getting somebody a license, where's your training going to be located? Here's what we're doing about web data connectors and extensions and things like that, and having announcements. That was very distributed, right, in different places, and our multiple core team members were supporting that with a lot of ad hoc requests, you know, getting straight IMs to them or straight emails, right? So it's not very sustainable to do things like that, and it hurts the customer experience. So where I came from, I was actually in the crowd first, right? I was on the business side, and I was screaming for that stuff too. And I felt like, okay, if I can shift myself somehow over to be a part of this service and be on the other end of it and helping it grow, maybe I can fix some of these items or, you know, be a part of that voice. And so that's, you know, I networked in and joined COP meetings and was able to actually, you know, become an analytics leader within that team. And one of the first things I did when I joined the team was to set up a COP site. So this is based on WordPress. We have a WordPress service at Lockheed Martin. Just a couple themes that we have set up that people can use, but something that can be quick deployed, and we can put all the information there that we want as far as our teams and our users being able to access things. So our product information, you know, anytime Tableau is launching new features or they have different product lines that they actually launch out there, we can add that to the site so that we can share that with everybody. And then also the community, right? So if we want people to start getting together, Steve talked about it, it's like the community is gold. People answering tickets for each other as far as that goes, right? Hey, I need an answer about a certain data connection that I want to put together, or I'm trying to do this calculation, you know, how do I do this? And we're thinking, oh, like we'll go answer that, right, and try to reply back to them, and somebody else in the community has already done it, right? They've already been there. They actually did that already, and it's just amazing to see that kind of interaction happening. So we really want people to connect with the community, and we wanted to make sure they had a place where they could see all of that stuff that's happening and how to really be a part of it. And then our team, you know, who are your points of contact? We talked about having 4 business areas under a common health plan. Well, they're all managed by different teams, right? So we have different support teams that support our rotary emission systems business, our MFC business, our space business, even our enterprise operations is what Steve and I are part of. So they need to know who do they contact, right? We can't do this with just 3 or 4 people and manage it for 100,000 people across the company. We need support from multiple teams. So, you know, who's your contacts? They can actually find that in there. And then our knowledge base, something that we're definitely upgrading and adding to as much as possible, but is a really good starting point for whenever we figured out something on a couple tickets, let's go create some type of how-to document, let's go create some video or something like that we can load out there for people to see, and they can do a quick search and enable themselves, right, to learn and overcome any challenges that they're having. So we had our Tableau Doctor Hours I want to touch on, because this has been a big success through this year. We noticed that our user base, was going through some ebbs and flows. We started, 2016. Here we are in 2019. We've had some users progress to points where they're getting into very advanced topics. Right? They want to do more advanced things that they're trying to do. And so the questions, instead of just being able to point them to some simple resource that they might be able to look through and train themselves on, they probably need a little more hands-on help. So we really set a lot of sessions this year with our Tableau Doctor Hours. And the way that we set that up was on the site. So you're seeing the screenshot above of what the site looks like, and they could submit a case. And once they get that case submitted, we're going to review it for inclusion, right? Because we can only do so many in each of the sessions. And we're holding these sessions on a weekly basis. And so people can come in there, they can submit a case. We're going to look at it for inclusion. Hey, do we already have a resource that we might have answered this before that they're just not aware of that we could send them? Or is this a new case that we actually need to deep dive into and invite people on the call? And when we set up the calls, we have it open to the community so that just because one person submitted this problem doesn't mean they're the only person that's probably having an issue with it. There could be others that have maybe another flavor or taste of that problem that they have questions they want to ask as well, that we can jump in on that call and answer them at that time. So those sessions go out, people can join those weekly, and then after the session we actually have a place on our Tableau server where we've enabled it for all the employees to go and access those dashboards that have been created, and they could reverse engineer that, right? They're going to be able to download it, see how some of those calculations were done, or maybe mapping features, whatever the topic of that session was that they want to go and learn about. And then engagement. So it's not always fun to just do the same financial dashboards, program management, you name it, right? HR stuff, and you got your company branding, and you see all these fantastic things like here at conference where you see all the authors right on Tableau Public and the things that people have made that are out there that are just amazing, right? The artistry that goes along with the data visualization. So giving your community an ability to actually flex that muscle, get a little bit creative, use different data, and do it, within their workspace. So we created a contest. Let's have a makeover Monday. And have everybody go and look at a certain dashboard and then go and redo that dashboard, and we'll vote on it and then recognize the winner. Put them out there on the Eureka stream. Hey, so-and-so won. This is the dashboard that they shared. Here's what we learned from it. We'll break it down, talk about what were the best practices within that visualization, why it makes sense to do it that way, and how you can apply that to any of your dashboards that you already might have out there. So this was our winner of one of them that we did, which was on average commute times. And you can see that DC is in there, so anybody in DC, I feel sorry for you. I'm a remote worker, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. But yeah, it's very tough to have a long commute like that, and this showed it up really quickly, right? You could see with the visualization, you could kind of key in right away what part of the country had the most populations and all of the issues with commute times. All right, so this is something we're very proud of as far as a strategic idea that we've come up with. And we launched this just last week. So it's been something in the making that we've been talking about, but you're trying to overcome staffing challenges. I, as the manager of the team, cannot just keep hiring more and more people, right? As our community is growing, I cannot just keep hiring another person on there. I've got 5 people now that are on our service as far as managing it from my direct reports. We're also using those different site managers that we have set up across the BAs. But as far as direct reports, I can't just keep adding more people to this to help with all the different tickets and the support items and training and developing anything. We're launching this across the whole company for over 100,000 people. So we wanted to look into, again, community is gold, right? These people are learning things. They might be specializing in different areas, whether it be web data connectors, somebody's testing out an extension API, they're doing something with TabPy, right, in Python, and they're integrating it. How can we even learn from the community and the different use cases that people have set up? We want to, partner with them. So we had a kickoff last week where we're naming different areas, right? So we look at operational readiness. What are our processes like? So right here, what are our processes like? Do we have good processes for how we manage the service and how we communicate with people and setting expectations as well, right? What's the line at which we can support self-service to the line that it's more on the user themselves to really support themselves and enable. And then getting into the platform upgrades. So being able to communicate that, test those upgrades, right? Just on our team, we can do a little bit of testing, some automated testing that we want to build into, but we don't know every data source that somebody's going to use out there. We do have a metric. We've got 2,600 data sources across the company that are on our Tableau production environment right now. We're not going to know all of those that are going to be added. We want to make sure people have a good experience when we go to a new upgrade. And so utilizing the community to be able to test those things is going to be a key item for us, and knowing that when we launch as fast as Steve's doing it here with 2019 3.1 already out there, that it's not going to disrupt any type of service operations.
Well, you reminded me the time stone is so fitting, because how many people get, when's the next upgrade? Mm-hmm. You're upgrading too slow, you're upgrading too fast. It's all time-based, so that's one near and dear to my heart because of the questions that we receive on the platforms.
And then we have space. So we look at infrastructure, DevSecOps. So with the introduction of the cloud, right, that's really more of the DevSecOps. You can do things on-prem, but cloud technologies really enable that process to happen. And so in moving in that direction, we've really embraced now looking at a blue-green deployment methodology, and we're using AWS to test those betas, right? So again, all the people that are doing the public betas and the public release out there, we're grabbing that right away. We're throwing it up on an AWS instance, and we're starting to test that out and see new features, right? So 50 column tables, yay. You know, we can go and test it out and see how well that's gonna perform, or any of the new features on the server, right, that we wanna get going. And we gotta have a community that's a part of that and working with that, right? We're not gonna be able to do it all just ourselves. And then training and certification. We can guess what everybody wants to learn, and we can put some personas together that are gonna be able to approach that, but getting that word out, and then also making sure that we're tailoring the training and getting the feedback from the community on what's actually working, what's not working, what people want to see. We want to have a point of contact for that and somebody who's really running that within the businesses. And our communication and awareness. So we're going to rely, even though we can have all these fancy methodologies on email follow-ups and broadcasts across different email channels, your Eureka stream that we've showed today, Slack, right, that we have available now, and then also even on our home website, our intranet site called Inside LM that everybody in the company can see. That's great, but we still need people within the community to actually share these things and communicate it with their teams, right? So that's where we started off with the word of mouth. That's still important. And you probably think about even in your own personal lives when you go to buy something, you don't always buy just on the marketing material that's out there, right? You buy because you've talked to somebody and they've given you a level of confidence in that service or that product. And then extensibility and integration. So Steve, I think you got a good one in this one actually to talk about this.
Oh, absolutely. So we're still arguing with the Tableau blueprinting guys as to who came up with extensibility and integration first. The ones in those center six, and I love this chart because it's a marketer's nightmare. There are no odds in here. It's 2, 6, and 4 instead of 3, 5s, and 7s. So I love that perspective there to really balance and complete the picture. Obviously, you know who the both of us are if you were to look at Captain America or Iron Man. Our specialist, the key area with this is the arc reactor pods. It's truly the MIT descriptor for arc reactor. So affordable, robust, compact. Affordable, unfortunately, because we can't provide them charging number, but we'll tell you we have some unique ways to be able to handle that from a recognition perspective on the next chart. Robust. These are teams that are now doing something very special and very important to them, but very advanced, especially the extensibility and integration one. We could see that breaking out to 5 sub-teams, Tab Pi, embeds, even more than 5, maybe a half a dozen to a dozen teams. So we're starting to see, it was great when you send it to 10 people and 30 people show up to a kickoff call, and within an hour, you've gone through strategy and you've had 2 demos and 20 minutes of discussion on how people are going to help each other.
That was not planned.
That was not planned at all. Because again, that's an area where we're not going to have the bandwidth, nor will our core team who supports those 6 areas have the bandwidth to put together a chart package each time. So I'm really proud of the team that's worked this. We also did pilot one called ABI, or Analytics and Business Intelligence Platform at scale, in the summertime, which actually touched on both the cloud acceleration, which is sometimes mandated towards us, and then also how do you run at scale. So those 2 on the right side, we did actually have some success with a pilot, and we're going to be visiting that. So again, you can see there that I think there's a lot. The final piece I want to mention is these teams, we trust them so implicitly, they're going to help us change policy. So when you think of security with infrastructure or security with extensions or web data connectors, there's enough of a gray area out there where we're going to ask them, bring a case to us or make a position statement to us, and you're going to have to defend it. We're going to be really challenging them with our experience, but if it makes walking around sense, we're implementing it. And I think that really shows, you like mentioning flattening the organization, it shows that we're willing to share the ownership at a platform level, at a content level, at scale. And the team's already super excited, already started out. I'm just thrilled with what I've seen to date with the teams that have already initiated. So I'm looking forward to getting the rest underway. This is an area, your growth Your staffing will always be behind. I think it was about a year or two, at least 1 man to 2 man years behind, or FTEs, I should say, full-time equivalents, the growth. So the growth has always outpaced our ability to staff in traditional manners. This is the only way we can survive moving into phase 4. Any further comments on that chart?
Yeah, and it's like the flattening of the org. So I talked a little bit about digital transformation and really how to enable that. And it's not about technology all the time. It's not about all the tools that we have available. It's also about the people and people accepting change and how they're going to actually move through that change. And so by doing this and getting the community involved and taking ownership on these different areas, that's going to make that change more rapid, more adopted, right? And they're going to be able to articulate why it's important and why we actually need to do these things. We do have a goal by 2025 to have a lot of different areas established. The data refinery, that data is the foundation of those items. And so being able to launch this here with Tableau as that gold standard example that we really do have at our company. It's the most active community. It's really the one that's got the loudest voice and has been pushing the envelope on these things. That's going to show us out first, and then people look at us and how we've done things, and we can apply that to other areas of technology across our company. So integrating that all together. To enable people, you have to be able to train them and give them the education that they're going to be able to move forward with. And so as part of the integrated approach, we've got a few different sites that are set up here. We have our Digital Academy. Digital Academy is set up with different roles that people can look to move through. So for me as a manager, if I'm talking to one of my direct reports and having one-on-ones, what's your career progression? What are the things you want to go after? And not making it some very abstract talk about maybe certain tasks or technologies they want to learn, but an actual role that they can fit into. And so within Digital Academy, we have role-based, and we also have some of the technology-based learning, but people can start to shoot for a role. And there's really a progression that goes along with this that ties into that basic data literacy, and then also any of the tool-based that we have set up there. So we've got our data literacy, we've got self-service analyst journeys, and we have our Tableau training that we have out there for people to take. Now, people can move through that, and there's really a goal at the end of, I think about, in my situation, there's jobs that I've taken before where I got into the job 6 months or a year in and maybe wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And it'd be nice as well as manager to know somebody's engaged at work and that they want to do those things. I think there's a statistic out there that talks about 70% of the workforce is not engaged with their work. They're not quite happy at work. And what's the reason for that, right? So one way we're approaching this is it's a tryout, our power up, right at the bottom there. They're able to show their skills through these trainings. So taking those trainings, going through our launch program that we have at the top left, which is a pipeline, a boot camp that somebody can go through where instead of just relying on e-learning, they can actually go through a training with a subject matter expert or somebody we've procured from maybe one of our technology partners, Tableau for instance, as being part of those instructors, to then take them through an 8-week course where they're using their own data, they're applying that, they're building projects and showing that they have some ability to use these technologies. And when they can show that ability, it helps with your resume, right? It helps if there's new job opportunities that you're trying to go for and you're trying to network with in your community, and really the employee retention that we're trying to drive, not just to hire outside of our company, but to transform our internal workforce and then give them opportunities to work with other groups. And so then when they come through the power-ups, they've got all that evidence. I completed a launch pipeline. I actually completed this role-based training, and I can go and now apply to these different power-up opportunities. I could put one out there, for instance, about community management, and we talked about the arc reactor and those pods. I could put one out there that says, I want somebody to manage Tab Pi for Tableau and setting up a Tab Pi platform, right? All the different code that we want to use in there and the different strategies that we want to use in there, and give somebody an opportunity for a 3-month stint to go and do that and see if they like it. And they can get credit for that in their performance plans, right? And show, that they're thinking forward and they're being innovative. And then if it's good, maybe we want to open up a rec and actually hire that person onto the team. So now there's a path that actually led them to go from one position and transform into another technology position.
I think we're big fans of try before you buy as well too, and that works both ways. So the power-ups used to be called stretch goals or stretch assignments, right? But now the arc reactor pods will go in there as a power-up for the team that sustains that. Very excited to start giving homework early next year with the launch program. So as a former pipeline graduate of the data and analytics one, I think there was a half a course or a half a meeting dedicated to visual analytics. Now they want us to do an entire curriculum around visual analytics powered by Tableau. So how we've grown in just a few short years. But homework and really age-old term, but capstone at the end, so project work at the end. This is truly something that people will be graded upon as well, too. So I'm excited to be on the other end of that spectrum.
Yeah, it's something else to mention really quick, too. Just grab the laser pointer here. So this, what you're seeing here in this screenshot, this is actually our success stories site. So we're always looking for any type of success stories across the company that somebody's used multiple technologies, not just Tableau, but we also think of, you know, a solution architecture, right? You might need a certain database technology, something to integrate the data, virtualize the data, and then actually consume that layer of visualization, right? We want to share how our tools and how our data refinery strategy is actually working, right? Is this being effective? Are there actually stories within the business where this stuff is, you know, impacting the business in a positive way, and we can talk about that, and that helps again to create momentum and, you know, get a good backing for it as far as we move forward into the future. So here we are towards the end now with putting some of these items into place and getting started. We're at, you know, TC19. We've got a broad base of people that are here. I think we have around like 60 different people from Lockheed actually that are at our conference, and we just see the uptick, right, that we're starting to grow up again. We've staffed up. We're looking at those reactor pods, and we've, you know, launched the latest version, and we're getting better back on our communications. So some of the things where we had that flattening here in this ramp, we're getting back to those things, and we're seeing it in the community as far as these are our super users, I would say, or our most engaged users when we look at this Eureka stream and looking at the data that we're looking at here. So yeah, it's only around 1,000, but those are 1,000 crazy fans. And so when you do a lot of those things and you pay attention to it and look at what the data is telling you, you can go and make those different changes and adjustments so that you can continue to grow that community and keep everybody engaged.
And you can tell we love annotations based on this visualization.
All right, so some lessons learned.
Yep. So experience-based lessons learned. Server administration does not equal server administration. So if it's...
What?
Oh, well, I'll explain it. So if you're doing RDPs or you're logging onto the server to manage the server itself, that's different. Oftentimes people say you're the server admin. And then is that the front end, what you would consider a Tableau server admin, or is that the environment admin? We've found that we've had to split this role. So this is just from our experience. Now, many of our core team members can handle the front end server administration role. But again, if you have both of those, there's a different type of individual or role tailored for those different items. And I joke, you know, here's my breaking character. If anybody remembers the Love Boat, and when they say your bartender and Isaac goes like this, well, if you start seeing this in your organization where it's your installer, your server admin, your content provider, and it's the same person, that's an early warning sign that you have a problem. So we still, to this day, argue about exactly what all the roles are that should round out the service. And we just continue to work it because we have to evolve the way the product is and the way the customer is. Finding top KPIs, so I looked, we have 90 workbooks out on our production server that use the Postgres metadata, and that's data chaos by itself. So what we've started to realize is, and the blueprinting's actually helped us, is what is a common or a standard KPI to measure success or growth, and start going back, and we're collapsing our workbooks now. So like I said, with the COP, because of our strength of the COP and also the trust that we have in a COP, that's a great barometer for us. So in experience basis, you're going to measure a lot of the things with the blueprinting from a deployment perspective, but also find some of your own KPIs. I'm a big fan of a lot of the data that you've seen in here. Just create it yourself if it doesn't exist. Don't let that be a blocker for you. And then credit to this guy, because I've been considered for a few times. Solid architecture get you considered for one of these talks, but user experience gets you on stage. So thanks to Anthony Brown for all the work you've been doing this year, really the visionary work to redefine the way we're doing user experience and really customer focus. Timeless reminders, I'm not gonna, there you go.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm not gonna, I might go off on a tangent for another 30 minutes if I
Yeah,
say.
we're getting close to
Master
time.
the product by using the product to run the service. So just look at my Tableau public site, and I put as much data out there. I'm going to continue to flesh that out. We've done anything from practicums, testing our own teams from a hiring perspective, and then also existing team members to see, okay, could you do a minimum viable product? Could you rapid prototype? Here's 2 data sets. Go. We'll see you in 24 hours. That's out there. And what I want, if the community takes nothing else from that, if they go out there and just download it or improve it or just use it, great. It's all public data. That's why it's out there on public. But you don't have to build up that curriculum. We've used that for a STEM Gaining STEAM workshop with teachers in our school districts around the area. So you'll see a lot of multiple use with some examples out there. And then self-service is definitely a role transformation. I feel like I'm coaching more on best practices and being performance engineering as a product owner versus IT managed delivery. And then every time we did not embrace the culture of crowdsourcing, we started to see that decline. We're just really now, again, revamping it or getting a little smarter on our teams are so excellent technically, we got to give them more. That's what the arc reactor pods are really for. So it's not just, could you help me with this simple task? No, we want you to set policy. We want you to help us change the direction because that's the only way we're going to continue to grow. You have any final ones?
Nope. We'll get to questions. So here's our team. Not everybody's got their picture on there. They're shy. But, got our different teams members. Some of them are in the crowd here today. But every person's got a great role, and this is just the main core team. We definitely have a larger, like I said, the different site teams that are set up in there as well to manage everything. And I could say probably it's taken about, 10, 15 people total throughout the business areas to support,
Yes.
The service. And then our partners here. So our Tableau partners that are here today would not be possible without them. So another takeaway on the lessons learned. Take their advice. If they're bringing resources to you and you need to, help with your growth, definitely rely on them and ask them for any advice and support. I think a big thing that we've got even in the recent year here is when we're trying to go through some type of challenge or some new feature that we want to put together, they've been able to connect us with other companies, right? We can start to talk to each other and learn things from each other. So really appreciate that and the partnership that you guys have given us.
I'd also like to credit Chris Bullock, Porter, Francois, hi Chris, great to see you. Francois, Brian Smith, to be able to keep it sold at the top level for those first 2 years. I don't know how many times Brian did the pitch for operational as he uses Tableau as a CIO or as C-level executive. Those type of things, and then Francois constantly showing us the new features.
Yep.
It must be very challenging for them in their schedule, but to be able to keep it sold early on was truly huge for us. So when you see that thing in the blueprinting on executive advocacy, that's somewhat what needed to take hold in the first couple of years. So always keep that in mind. That is a critical component. You can't just jump right in to all the tactical items. So that's another lessons learned.
And then the blueprint. So a lot of the things we've talked about today, the growing pains, the things that we've implemented, a lot of this it's all in the blueprint. In fact, we did a recent baseline to figure out some areas that we had some weaknesses and where we can continue to grow. I would say you could definitely reach out to us if you want to talk to us about any challenges that you're having that you think we might have some feedback on and we could help with. But talk to your Tableau team as well about the blueprint and how you can help implement that at your company, because that's really been something we've been able to integrate already into our business. And we're already focused on it, and now we're going to see a lot of success. So I think they can help you with implementing that.